over 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, and nearly a millennium after the Great Hyperspace War, the Republic would once again face a grievous threat from beyond the stars. The Mandalorian Wars, instigated by the warlord Mandalore the Ultimate, shook the foundations of the galaxy. As the Republic struggled to repel this new threat, many Jedi Knights wished to join the Republic Navy on the front lines, much to the dismay of their masters. While the Council forbid all Jedi from joining the war effort, a small sect of Jedi Knights defied the Council and formed a rebellion against the Mandalorian threat. The leaders of this group were the Jedi Knights Revan and Alec. Born on the planet Quill, Alec became a general in the Republic Army. With the combined might of the Jedi Crusaders and the Republic military, the Mandalorians were pushed back to Malachor V, where Mandalore the Ultimate was defeated by Revan. Following the war's end, Alec and Revan discovered that Mandalore had been under the influence of a Sith Emperor, known as the Dark Lord Vitiate. Traveling to the unknown regions, Revan and Alec attempted to stop the Sith Emperor before his plans of a galactic-wide invasion could come to pass. While the two Jedi attempted to fight the Sith Emperor, Vitiate's power overwhelmed the young knights. Breaking their will and turning them to the dark side, Alec was dubbed Darth Malak by the Sith Emperor, serving as the apprentice of Revan, now the Dark Lord Darth Revan. Tasked by Vitiate to locate the Starforge, an ancient Rakatan weapon of near-limitless power, Malak and Revan forged their own Sith Empire and waged a galactic-wide war on an unsuspecting Republic, which was still recovering from its losses at the hands of the Mandalorians. Following the Sith Lord's attack, Revan was confronted by a Jedi strike force aboard his flagship. Darth Malak seized the opportunity and fired on his master's ship, presumably killing him. Taking the title of Dark Lord for himself, Malak continued to wage war against the Republic, using the Starforge to wreak havoc throughout the galaxy. Darth Malak finally met his end at the hands of Revan, who had survived Malak's betrayal and redeemed to the light. Following the Sith Lord's death, the Starforge was destroyed, and the Jedi Civil War was brought to an end. But Darth Malak was not the last Sith Lord to hold the galaxy by its throat. Darth Vader, formerly the Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, was the Sith apprentice of Darth Sidious, recruited following the initiation of the Great Jedi Purge in 19 BBY. Arguably the greatest Jedi killer of all time, Vader led the sterilization of the Jedi Temple and butchered the Separatist Council, making way for the rise of the Galactic Empire. However, following his mission to the volcanic world of Mustafar, Vader was confronted by his former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and after a fierce duel through the mineral refinery, he was defeated and left severely injured. After being rebuilt with extensive cybernetics to keep him alive, Vader became the enforcer to the newly minted Emperor Palpatine. Darth Vader was finally defeated in 4 ABY by his own son, Luke Skywalker. However, as he lay broken and helpless, Luke spared his father's life, rejecting the temptations of the dark side and declaring himself a Jedi, like his father before him. As the Emperor lashed out at the young Jedi, Vader, sensing his son's pain, stepped in, killing Palpatine and throwing him into the Death Star II's reactor, in the process suffering fatal injuries. Vader then died in his son's arms, transcending the physical plane and re-emerging as Anakin Skywalker once again, having freed himself from the dark side. First, we will compare their physical attributes. Darth Malak is a human male in his mid to late 30s. He stands at exactly 2 meters tall and is noted for his physical strength, speed, and agility, even despite his large size. His tolerance for physical injury was incredible, and he is perceived even after sustaining injuries that would have crippled lesser warriors. Following a duel aboard his master's flagship, after publicly challenging him for control of the Sith Empire, Darth Malak lost his lower jaw and was forced to wear a prosthetic one, and he required a voice box to enable him to speak. While the mask likely protected him from certain poisons, that's really where the benefits imparted by it end. However, if the mask was damaged or destroyed, Malak was capable of surviving without it, the only damage being the decrease in volume of his voice and the exposure of his wound, which could present a point of vulnerability if targeted. A human male of 45 years of age, Darth Vader was left more machine than man following his cybernetic reconstruction, a result of the injuries he sustained on Mustafar. All 4 of his limbs were cybernetic, and he was confined to a respirator. Due to the armor's cumbersome weight, he was forced to completely retool his fighting style from the ground up to compensate, working around his severely restricted agility. However, Vader learned to live with his situation, and even took advantage of the armor's many benefits. Thanks to his prosthetic limbs, his strength was superhuman, and he was able to effortlessly break bones with his bare hands. His respirator also provided his lungs with unlimited oxygen, granting him near unlimited stamina. The armor also provided him with insane levels of protection and tolerance to injury. He was able to shrug off minor lightsaber blows, withstand close proximity to a grenade explosion, take blaster bolts, withstand flamethrowers, and even survive for a limited time in the vacuum of space. However, he wasn't without his limits. His armor can only take so much punishment, and certain electrical discharges, such as intense force lightning, can short out his system. Both Darth Malak and Darth Vader are humans who are outfitted with cybernetics. However, the benefits imparted by Malak's cybernetics are minor when compared to Vader's. Vader's armor grants him far more physical strength and endurance than his competition. While Darth Malak is tough, Vader has shrugged off injuries that would have finished him, even enduring the loss of limbs and continuing to fight. While Malak's jaw isn't as lethal a weakness as Vader's respirator, as described in the novel Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, Vader's entire fighting style is dedicated to protecting his cybernetics, his only real weakness being severe electrical strikes. Darth Vader gets the edge in physical ability. Now we compare them as martial artists and lightsaber duelists. For reasons I honestly can't fathom, Darth Malak's preferred lightsaber form is not confirmed in any source. However, there is enough presented in the game, as well as his few comic book appearances, that I was able to construct a set of statistics around him. He was hailed as one of the greatest and most experienced lightsaber duelists of his time, engaging many Jedi and Sith alike in single combat. Malak fought extremely aggressively, and his moves were incredibly broad and kinetic, typically able to break a person's guard in only a few strikes. Based on this evidence, I believe Malak's preferred form was Juyo, the 7th form of lightsaber dueling. Noted as the most aggressive lightsaber form, Juya focuses on attack and nothing else, aggressive passion and decisive blade work. However, as described in the Jedi Path, practitioners of Juya were required to be proficient in at least a few other forms, so as to have something to build their Juya from. In my opinion, I believe the backbone to Malak's Juya was Ataru and Makashi. A fast-paced and aggressive fighting style, Ataru focuses on flamboyant blade work and utilizing every part of the body as a weapon. Malak would utilize elaborate acrobatics in many of his duels, most notably his brief skirmish with Bastila Shan. The 2nd form of lightsaber dueling, Makashi is geared for lightsaber dueling, its main focus being elegance and pinpoint accuracy to expose weaknesses. Malak would frequently utilize a one-handed grip on his lightsaber, a core aspect of Makashi. Likewise, he even opened with a Makashi salute during his final battle with Revan aboard the Starforge. However, there was a major weakness in the Dark Lord's technique. While Darth Malak's offense was extremely aggressive and powerful, his defense was pitiful. Due to Juyo's focus on attack and nothing else, practitioners of the style were left extremely vulnerable to counterattack, and this was a weakness Malak had in spades. He has repeatedly had his defense penetrated by opposing Jedi and even non-Force users. While Makashi masters are capable of effectively parrying and countering lightsaber strikes with precise blade work, this is a practice Malak clearly has not attained. If he can't overwhelm his enemies with an aggressive assault, then he either has to resort to his force abilities or die. And this made him all but useless when pitted against a duelist of equal or greater strength. An undisputed master of the lightsaber, Darth Vader was one of the greatest lightsaber duelists of his era, much of his skill ironically resulting from his defeat on Mustafar. The backbone of Vader's lightsaber style was Djem-So, a branch of the fifth form of lightsaber dueling, a highly aggressive, strength-oriented fighting style based around following up defensive parries with immediate counters. However, Vader was by no means strictly a Form 5 specialist, and was, in reality, a highly sophisticated hybrid lightsaber master, taking elements from all forms of lightsaber dueling in a personalized technique built off the back of Djem-So. This general versatility allowed Vader to effectively adapt to nearly any form of lightsaber dueling, mixing, matching, and utilizing whatever form suited the situation he was in. Typical of Form 5 masters, Vader's offense was nothing short of overwhelming, taking full advantage of his increased cybernetic strength to unleash devastating power attacks. While aggressive brute force assaults were not unheard of from him, he also applied Form 5 in a very controlled and precise manner, opening and exploiting weaknesses when they are presented, then cutting his enemies down. While Djem-So is characterized for its lack of maneuverability, Vader was capable of compensating for this deficiency, even despite the added weight brought on by his armor. While he couldn't move and spin with the same speed as in days gone by, he could pull off some very deft footwork, and he was even capable of pivoting on the spot. He even incorporated a few basic Ataru acrobatics into his sequences. Likewise, he has been able to keep pace with far more agile opponents on several occasions. When fighting defensively, Vader was highly capable, utilizing Shien for blast deflection and elements of Ceresu for defense against lightsabers. He has even demonstrated a near Makashi-like defense in many of his duels, utilizing a one-handed grip and effectively parrying strikes with subtle moves and sophisticated blade and footwork. Overall, Darth Vader was a true lightsaber master, with a powerful technique unmatched by all but the greatest of lightsaber masters. I find this one relatively simple to call. While both Darth Malak and Darth Vader are highly skilled power duelists, the manner in which they both apply their skills couldn't be more different. While not entirely lacking for precision, Darth Malak was an offensive dervish, his style based around aggressively breaking his opponents rather than outfencing them with pure skill. His commitment to offense was so extensive that he completely failed to overcome the inherent weaknesses of his form, such as his lackluster defense. And the result was this aggressive onslaught that completely crumbled when forced into a defensive role. If he can't overwhelm his enemies outright, he's got nothing. Vader, by contrast, has applied much more controlled and precise assaults, not only matching Malak's brute force, but completely blowing him out of the water in terms of precision and technical sophistication. His technique refined to levels far beyond his competition. In the end, there really is no contest here. Darth Vader gets the edge as a martial artist and lightsaber duelist. Now we compare their force abilities. Darth Malak was a master of the dark side, and was the most powerful active Sith Lord of his era. His use of basic physical augmentation allowed Malak to perform the superhuman feats of speed and strength attributed to Force Masters. His combative applications of telekinesis were capable, ranging from basic force pushes to off-balance his enemies, to powerful force strikes to thrash his opponents. Malak was also capable of ripping through the force shields of opposing force wielders and choking them to death, at one point doing so to multiple Jedi simultaneously. He was also capable of Force Scream, amplifying his voice with the Force and using it as a sonic weapon, though he refrained from doing so unless absolutely necessary due to his cybernetics. He also possessed some skill in the healing arts, which enabled him to better cope with injury. Malak was a practiced hand in the use of Force Lightning, frequently using it to torture and kill. He was also capable of using Force Drain, where he feeds off the life force of those he kills to fuel himself. His telepathic abilities were capable, though they appeared to be limited to the basic mind trick. One of Malak's most frequently used offensive abilities was Force Stun, where he temporarily deadens the senses of his enemies and immobilizes them. He made heavy use of this ability in combat, and was able to stun multiple targets simultaneously, even successfully applying it against master-level Force users. Malak has also been credited with some skill in the use of Sith sorcery and alchemy, though his upper limit with such abilities is unknown. As the prophesied Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker had the potential to become the most powerful Force wielder of all time, a role later filled by his son. However, the loss of so much of his living tissue after his defeat on Mustafar robbed him of his ability to wield such power. Despite this, Vader rebuilt his skills from the ground up as he did with his lightsaber technique, and ultimately became one of the most powerful Force wielders of his era. His use of basic physical augmentation allowed Vader to perform various feats of superhuman speed and agility. While his cybernetics already allowed him to break bones, when empowered by the Force, he was able to drive his fists through solid rock and metal. His combative applications of telekinesis were utterly devastating, and he made frequent use of it in combat. He was able to thrash his enemies with powerful Force pushes and shoves, and he was capable of destroying entire battalions with massive Force waves. He also made heavy use of Force throw, thrashing his enemies with anything not bolted down, often doing so while simultaneously attacking them with his lightsaber. Vader was also capable of ripping through the Force shields of opposing Force wielders and choking them to death, a practice heavily favored by the Dark Lord to torture and more often kill, at one point choking out multiple targets at a time. He was especially skilled at telekinetically manipulating his lightsaber in combat, my favorite instance being when he threw his saber into the mouth of a jungle beast, then proceeded to turn it on with the Force and decapitate the creature from within. Vader was also capable of applying the Force in a more subtle manner. Again, my favorite instance being when he used the Force to stick a rebel's hand to a grenade just before it went off. He was also capable of using the Force to temporarily heal his damaged lungs, at one point surviving being buried underground for days with nothing but the raw power of the dark side keeping him alive. Vader was also skilled in Tutaminis, using it to block projectiles, fire, and even blaster bolts, though Force lightning obviously remained outside of his ability to manipulate without the usage of a lightsaber. His telepathic abilities were capable, ranging from the basic mind trick to the probing of minds for information. Due to the loss of his limbs, Vader was incapable of utilizing or effectively defending against Force lightning, as it required living tissue to be generated. He compensated for this with the rare ability known as kinetite, essentially a compressed ball of telekinetic energy. Though it should be noted that he has only used this ability when in the presence of the Force-empowering Kyber crystal, so it is possible and even likely that such a thing is beyond his normal scope. This one's a little tricky. Both Darth Malak and Darth Vader are highly skilled in the combative use of telekinesis, though I say Vader gets the edge here. While Malak isn't lacking in such skills, he doesn't possess near the magnitude or control achieved by Vader. However, this is balanced out by the variety of abilities Malak has at his disposal, though the effectiveness of these abilities is questionable. Yes, Malak is capable of Force lightning, the one Force ability Vader is incapable of effectively defending against. However, it should be noted that Vader had developed several countermeasures against Force lightning, most notably using his lightsaber to deflect and redirect bolts, as he demonstrated against the Starkiller clone on Kamino in The Force Unleashed 2. He also outfitted his armor with special electrical insulation to lessen the effects of Force lightning, though this was obviously only effective to a point. I don't think Malak's Force stun would be all that effective against someone as powerful as Vader, as the ability can be resisted given enough raw power, something I consider well within Vader's scope of ability. While Sith sorcery could provide Malak a massive edge, I hesitate to give it to him outright, as his upper limit with such abilities is unknown. However, while the effectiveness of Malak's abilities is questionable, and he lacks Vader's raw telekinetic power, his greater variety does make him the more well-rounded combative Force user. And for that reason, he gets the edge as a Force user, though only barely. Now we compare the armament and tools used by each combatant. Darth Malak wielded a standard single-bladed lightsaber as his primary weapon. It followed a very archaic and robust design, though that is really all that can be said about it. His weapon utilized a single red synthetic crystal as the focusing lens. Darth Vader's lightsaber was of incredibly heavy-duty design, sporting a ridged hand grip and a thick hilt to accommodate his cybernetic hands. The lightsaber also featured a dual phase function, allowing Vader to quickly elongate the length of his blade for surprise attacks. While it originally utilized a standard red synthetic crystal as the focusing lens, Vader later replaced it with a very rare scarlet Adegan crystal. While both Sith Lords utilize standard single-bladed lightsabers, Vader's dual-phase weapon provides him more options in combat. Darth Vader gets the edge in armament and tools. And now, the verdict. Both Darth Malak and Darth Vader are masters of the dark side, and both stand among the greatest duelists and Force wielders of their eras. However, in comparison to each other, they are very different in how they apply their skills. As previously stated, while not entirely lacking precision, Malak is an offensive dervish, whose style mainly focuses on breaking down his enemy's guard with sheer aggression, his mentality being that the best defense is a good offense, plain and simple. By contrast, Vader has applied his hybrid form in a much more controlled and precise manner, not only matching Malak's aggression, but completely blowing him out of the water in terms of precision and technical sophistication, and is, in the end, a far greater lightsaber duelist. While both are extremely powerful Force wielders, I feel Malak's greater variety makes him the superior combative Force user. So it really comes down to this question. Could Malak overwhelm Vader with sheer magnitude, such as Palpatine or Darth Krayt could? Or could he use the abilities he possesses that are alien to Vader to confuse and outmaneuver him, such as Exar Kun could? Honestly, neither situation seems likely to me. While Malak's combative applications of telekinesis are impressive, he doesn't wield such skills with near the level of magnitude or control as his competition. The effectiveness of Malak's lightning is questionable, as Vader can still absorb it with his lightsaber despite its destructive intensity. I don't feel Force Stun would work on someone as powerful as Vader. While it may stagger him for a brief moment, his raw power would allow him to simply power through it before Malak could effectively make his move. While Sith sorcery could provide a significant edge, Malak's upper limit with such skills is unknown, and due to his infrequent use, I think it's safe to say that his skills in such areas remains underdeveloped. In the end, while Malak's Force abilities could stagger and even push Vader onto his back foot, he lacks the raw power to overwhelm him outright, with his abilities amounting to nothing more but a stall tactic. A fight between these two would play out like a combination of Anakin Skywalker's duel with Dooku on Naboo and the brief skirmish between Darth Maul and Savage Opress on the Kai Block transfer station, with Malak standing in for Dooku and Opress, and Vader standing in, ironically enough, for Anakin and Maul. While the battle would begin with them in a vicious lightsaber duel, Vader's much more refined level of skill would allow him to quickly gain the early advantage. Realizing this, Malak would attempt to use his Force abilities to fight back. However, this would be met with Vader either deflecting, countering, or simply weathering Malak's assault. And once Malak had exhausted his bag of tricks, he would be quickly outmaneuvered and outfought by his equally aggressive, but far more skilled adversary. I declare Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, the winner. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave suggestions for future battles in the comment section below. As always, this is just my opinion, and I'll see you guys later.